comes in with a question. Right. Bill, tell me when I can start. What do I do? Is it already running? Oh,
The bracha and let's go. Ready for takeoff.
okay. Good morning. We're learning in the schools of home.
Sabah, the bus, bar,
Zahava Golda, Baruch Binyamin.
bus, bar.
And also in the schools, I would like to ask of the before Shlema, I have a granddaughter, whose name is Yehuda's Golda Bat Elisa Kana, who's quite ill and she's in the hospital. Thank you. Okay. We are on page 118, B, the second side of the page. We're about halfway down. We're going to start at the Mishnah. All right, my start. Okay, Mishnah. So let's just describe a little bit what we're going to be learning today. We're going to cover two Mishnahs today, and it's going to take us to the end of the page and the end of the Masechta. The first Mishnah discusses who you should be careful about buying something from because there is some kashash, some suspicion that the person may be selling something that is not his or something that he does not have the right to sell. And well, there are a lot of examples. What it's going to come down to is who you're buying from, what you're buying, and where you're buying it. And all of those are viewed as signs that perhaps you should be very careful. And this is with respect to laborers. The second Mishnah, which starts on the bottom of the next page, is about where you can buy something from somebody who provides a service to other people. Somebody, for example, who runs a laundry, or someone who prepares wooden vessels. So we're at the Mishnah, which is about halfway down on the page. Mishnah Ein Lokakin Min Haroin. You should not buy from a shepherd the following things: Semer, V'chala, V'gedim, wool or milk or Gedim goats. V'lo Mishomrei Peros, Eitzim, Uperos, and from somebody who is job is to guard fruit. You don't buy from him wood, especially small pieces of wood, and fruit. Aval, but lokakin mina nashim, but you can buy from nashim, from women, certain things. Late summer, the Yehuda. You can buy woolen goods in Yehuda, uklei pishtan begalil, and linen goods in the Galil, the Agalin b'Sharon, and Agalin wagons in Sharon. There's some discussion among Meforshim about what is Sharon really, but let's just leave it that it's the place called Sharon. V'kulon she'amru lahatmin, and anybody who says to you, this is going to be, you should hide this. Walk out with it under your coat so no one can see. Asur v'lokukim, it's asur to hide, to buy from that person. Beitzim v'tarnagolin, and when it comes to eggs or chickens, makal makom, you can buy them. So this Mishnah really is divided into four parts, and now the Gemara is going to methodically go through these four parts. So we'll start with the first part. Tana Rabbanan. Ein lokukim min haroim, you do not buy from shepherds. Lo izim, v'lo gedayim, lo not goats and not baby goats, I guess, kids. V'lo gizin, and not fleece. V'lo telushin shel semer, and not pieces of wool that you pulled off, like little tufts of wool. I think it's probably the best translation. Aval, but lokakim mehen tiporin, but you can buy from them tiporin, which is sewn clothes, mipnei jehein shalahen, because they are theirs. Now, let's stop here for a moment. You may recall that maybe a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, we had a discussion about what kind of a change a person who steals something makes to it and results in a kinyan where he owns it. And I recall there was a long discussion about what is a biblical change and what is a rabbinic change. And so what we're getting what the Gemara is getting at, even if someone did steal the wool, when he's made it into clothing, it's enough of a change that he's made a kinyan on it, he can sell it, and you can buy it. Okay, Midshain Shalahan. The Lokakin Mehan, Chalav Ugavina, Bamidbar, and you can buy from shepherds Chalav, milk, and cheese in the Midbar, below Yishuv, but not in the settled area. And what's the theory here? The theory here is that it's a lot of trouble for the Balabayas, the owner. Let's say the Balabayas has sheep or goats that a shepherd is watching outside town. It's too much trouble for him to go every day and collect milk or eggs. So these he's going to be willing to let the shepherd sell. It's not worth it to him to go and get it every day. So you can assume it's all right. The Lokakin Mayhem, Dalad Vehe Tzon, Dalad Vehe Gizin. And you can buy from them 4 and 5 sheep and 4 or 5 goats of a loshte, tzon veloshte gizim, but you can't buy 2 and you can't buy 2 of each. Now, okay, we're going to get into this reasoning, which sounds a little bit odd. The Gemara has questions about this reasoning because it's not intuitive. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Bayasos Lokakin Mehem. Rabbi Yehuda says Bayasos, meaning domesticated animals, you can buy from a shepherd even if he is in the midbar. Midbaros ein Lokakin, but undomesticated animals you don't buy from him. So domesticated animal is discussed as an animal that knows its place in the corral or the yard and will come back on its own. What is the general principle? Anything that the shepherd wants to sell. And Balabayas Margish, Bo, and the Balabayas is aware of what's going on with the goods that he owns. Lokakin Mehen, you can buy from them. Ein Margish, if the Balabayas is not aware of what's going on, Ein Lokakin Mehen, then you cannot buy from the shepherds. Amar Lokakin may, now the Gemara is going to come back and question what is this language 4 or 5 and 2 and 2. Amar Lokakin Mehen, Dalad Vehe Tzon, Dalad Vehe Gizin. You can buy 4 and 5 sheep and 4 and 5 gizing. Hashta Yesh Lomar Arba Zavinin Kamisha Miboy. If you can know you can buy 4, why does it have to say you can buy 5? And so, Amar Rav Kisa, we're going to bring down now 2 statements of Rav Kisa, and it's apparent that Rav Kisa had something to say about this, but they're not sure exactly what he said. There are 2 different versions of his commentary. Amar Rav Kisa, Abra Mato Kamisha, you can buy 4 from a small herd of 5. That's how he makes sense of these 2 numbers together. And the theory is that the Balabayas would be aware of 80% what's going on with 80% of his herd. And the shepherd doesn't go on to take a chance on not getting caught. The Ikeda Armi, Amar Rav Chiza, but there are others who have the opinion that Rav Chiza said, Arma Me'eder Katan, you can buy 4 from a small herd, and 5 from a large herd. So that's how he tries to make sense of these 2 numbers. But the general principle here is that 4 and 5 is a large enough number that the Balabayas would be aware of 4 or 5 sheep or cows missing, and the shepherd would not take a chance on selling it. He would be caught. Haguf Akasha, this thing itself presents a hard question. Amr Dalad Vehetzon, because it says 4 and 5 sheep, Dalad Vehegizin, 4 and 5 fleece, pieces of fleece, I guess. Dalad Vehe Ein, Avla Shalosh in, Avla Shalosh low. So we learn that you can sell 4 and 5 for the reasons we discussed. But when it comes to 3, lo, you cannot sell 3. So what's the logic there? Lo ema seifa avolo shtei tzon ha shalosh. Zavidin lo kasha. It is not really a question to be concerned about. Ha bebriasa ha bekakashita. He's dividing it up here into animals that are healthy and animals that are sick. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, the rest of this page. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Baisos lokakin mehen midbaros ein lokakin mehen. We're back to that phrase in the mission that says domesticated animals you can't buy, and because the Balabais is aware of it, and midbaros, midbar means desert or wilderness, but here it's referring to animals that are customarily kept or grazed in the wilderness. Think sheep, think goats. You're not going to graze them in the city. You're not going to graze them in a suburb. You get them out somewhere where the land is free and the grass is free.
I have an extra.
What does it say?
It says not 3.
Go ahead, read it. Read it. Read it loud so people can hear.
This implies that 4 or 5 yes we may buy, but 3 not. Now consider the latter part of the brisa, but not 2 sheep. This implies, but 3 we may buy.
The theory is that
It first says that we can buy 3, and then it says that we could.
that's what's counterintuitive about this brisa. The idea is that 2 is a small amount. The difference is that 4 and 5 is a large amount, and 2 is considered a small amount. And that's why there's a cutoff here at 3. We're going to cover a lot of items here today that if you don't have an agrarian background and you've never been a weaver or a chiseler, are going to be a little difficult to understand. Okay. Iboy lahu. So the question comes up for Rabbi Yehuda. Aresha kai ulakumra odilma asefa kai lakula. Rabbi Yehuda is coming up with a question about this brisa that we just read. And is it coming to make things more stringent, or is it coming to make things easier? And the language is a little difficult, but when you get through it, what he's really talking about is animals that are domesticated or animals that are in the wilderness. Okay. Aresha Kailakumra. The Amra Lokakin Mehan Arba Kamisha, you can take from them 4 or 5 tzon. Hani milid bayasos. We are dealing here with domesticated animals. Ava midbaros. Afila Arba Kamisha lo. But when it comes to animals that are being tended to by the shepherd outside the city or in the wilderness, 4 or 5 you can't take. Odilma asefer, or is he looking at the end of the brisa, kai lakula, and referring to making things more lenient to Amar of a lo shtei tzon, and this is we're getting into your comment. Lo shtei tzon, we're not talking about 2 sheep, lo shtei gizim, or 2 fleeces. Animili, what are we dealing with here? Midbaros, alabayasasam shtayim. But in the domesticated animals, we can take 2. Nami lokukim tashema, Titania. Rabbi Yehuda Amir lokukim bayasos mehen ve'ein lokukim mehen midbaros. You can buy domesticated animals. I think he's coming to say you can buy domesticated animals in any amount because the owner is always there and he's going to be aware, because by domesticated animals, it's assumed that they come home every night. And those that are out in the desert don't come home every night. Good morning, Professor. Ubakol makom lokakin mehan arba kamisha tzon mida amar. Bakal makom. You can buy 4 or 5. You can buy any amount you want if they're domesticated. Shemamina, and this is the final ruling. Shemamina, learn from it. Asefakai lakula. The end of the brisa, he's bringing down to be more lenient in what is permitted to buy. That's what the leniency is. What somebody is permitted to buy without necessarily raising a suspicion that it's stolen. Professor, we're just starting on page Cliff Yud Test 119. We're on the second line from the top.
360. First 360.
Good morning, Jonathan. Baruch Hashem, thank you. Now, okay. Second part of the mission of Zlo Mishomrei Peros, not from guardians of fruit. I assume this means guardians of orchards or fields, largely.
Or I would say cucumber watch.
A cucumber watchman,
Yeah, that was the
that's the normal, isn't it?
Now it's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Excuse me?
Now it's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay. Rav Zavin, Rav says, when you buy Shabishta Miarisa, Shabishta are little pieces of wood. Some say grapevines, but I think they're more like twigs or little pieces of wood from a sharecropper. Okay, Arisa sharecropper. Amrle Abaya, Vahatanan, below Mishomre Peros, Eitzim Peros. He's saying, but didn't we say in the mission that you shall not be able to buy wood and peros from a shomer peros? For the obvious reason you could be concerned it's not his to sell. Amarle, hanimi mishomer delay slagufa da'ara. That is referring to somebody who doesn't have any sense of ownership or concern about it. A sharecropper is a partial owner in the produce. Most sharecropping arrangements are that the sharecropper, for in return for working the land, gets, I think the typical amount is 30% of the produce, but he never ever acquires any ownership, and that's why it was frowned upon throughout history, because of these people in a state of perpetual poverty, because you never get ahead. You only get 30% of the produce, so you never acquire ownership of the land. The Lesa Gufa to Ara Midi, Aris the Islo Bigavea, that's a sharecropper who does have an ownership in this, okay. He is involved in it and he has the right to sell. In other words, he's not just selling something, he's selling something that he belongs to the owner, he's selling something that he has a chalik in. And so you don't have the same kashash that he's stealing. Tanarabanan. Shomer Peros, Lokakin Mehan, Kishahain Yoshvin, Umakvin. You can buy from a Shomer Peros when he is sitting somewhere, meaning he's sitting in a public area. The Mokrin selling Vahasalin Lifnehem, and his baskets of fruit are in front of him. The Turtane Lifnehem, and the scales that he uses to weigh out what he's selling in front of him. In other words, he's doing it in open manner. It's not the way you would expect a thief to be doing something. Is that what he's doing is there for everyone to see. V'kul anshe amru, and we're done with that. V'kul, here comes a general rule. V'kul anshe amru hatmin, and anyone who you were going to buy from who says hide this transaction or hide what you're buying, okay. Aser lokakin mehan, it's aser to buy from them. Mi pesach hagina, you can buy from somebody who's selling from the front, from the opening of the garden. Avaloma akre hagina, but not from the back of the garden. In other words, in the first case, it's where people would expect someone to be who's selling legitimate products. If he's in the back, selling in a dark alley, that's not what you would expect. Itmar Gazlan me'amasai muta liknos hemana, and a Gazlan, when is it permitted to buy something from someone who you know is a Gazlan? And remember again, mention again what we learned back a couple months ago, that a Gazlan who makes a shinui that's recognized either biblically or rabbinically has acquired the object, okay. And what's the rule of returning a stolen or a stolen object? If it is still existence, as it was when you stole it, you're obligated to return it. But if it is not in that form anymore, then your obligation is to return the monetary value at the time you stole it. So let's say someone steals wood and makes a very fancy and expensive chair or table with it. You don't return the chair or table, you return the value of the wood at the time you stole it. Okay, so this is really hearkening back to that discussion about what a thief, when you could buy from a thief. Okay, So let's go back. Itmar Gauslin, me'emasai mutar liknos heimana. At what time does it become permitted to purchase from a Gauslin? Rav Amar, achitahei rov mishalo. Rav says when the majority of what he owns is legitimately belongs to him. Shmuel says, Amar afilu ma'ut shalo. Shmuel says, even when just a little bit of it belongs to him. Okay. Orile Rav Yehuda, la'eded diyala. And Rav Yehuda la'ade de'ela, he said to his aide, could you help me with what this translation is? I assume that Ada is a name,
Yeah.
And Dayala is a workman.
Rav Yehuda instructed Ada, his attendant in
His
accordance
attendant.
with his state.
Okay. Kedivrei ha'omer afilu ma'ut shalo, even if he has only a little bit of things that he owns that are really legitimately his, you can purchase from him. Shalom, mute shalom mammon. Masur, Rav Huna, now we're talking about a masur. What is a masur? It's defined here in a very specific way. Someone who points out to the tax collector where someone has things that he can go and take. Okay. You find throughout the Gemara that there's nobody lower than a tax collector. And
It's true today.
no, don't think IRS, because the way the tax collecting was done is that people were given, or they would purchase the right to be a tax collector. And they would owe the government, say, $10,000 from this town for this year. And the government didn't care how much they collected. They owed the government $10,000, so they could collect 30,000, 50,000, 60,000, and they only would pay 10,000. So they were in it for personal profit, but they had the authority of the government behind them. And you find that there is nobody who is more hated than these tax collectors, and no one who is more looked down upon. There's some very interesting stories about tax collectors that we'll get to in Masechta Sanhedrin. And you say, wow, people really, really hated them.
It's like purchasing a medallion in a taxi monopoly in the city. You pay for a medallion and then you could charge, well, the rates are supposedly controlled, but you can raise your rates when it's a shortage. Nobody else could come in. You just make as much money as you can on it, and then Uber comes in saying, these guys out.
Yeah. You know, one of the famous stories about Alexander the Great, when he conquered the land, and a truce was negotiated with him before he conquered Jerusalem. And for the truce, the Jews said they would do three things. They said they would start the calendar over in the year that Alexander died.
Well, Tzaddik was it?
Huh?
It was the Tzaddik.
The Tzaddik, it was no. Was it Yochanan? I forget. It's slipping my mind. It's too early in the morning.
Shimon HaTzadik.
Who's that? That was Shimon HaTzadik.
Shimon,
Thank you.
Started with an S.
It was Shimon HaTzadik, who's buried in Jerusalem now. Anyway, they said they would do three things. They would start the calendar over when he died, which they actually did. We have a certain calendar that's used that starts from that year, which I think for us is 333. And they said then when year he died, all the children who were born would be named after him. That's how the name Alexander became a Jewish name. And the third thing is they said, and this was the problem, they said, we will collect the taxes ourselves. And so they introduced into the Kehillah this very problematic practice. So
These are Jews exploiting Jews, but instead of the Greeks.
yeah, it was Jews exploiting Jews. And so a Maser was one who would go and point out to the tax collector where he could go and find somebody's goods or sheep.
Here, it mentions Gentiles.
Excuse me?
I guess in this case, it was Gentiles, the tax collectors.
Well, it's a Maser. A Maser is a Maser.
There aren't Jewish masters.
Huh?
Is there such thing as an honest master or no? That's it.
An honest tax collector. You don't find a lot of mention of that in the
No.
Gemara.
You have something very similar happening with Medicare recovery audit contractors, where people get a cut of whatever fraud or overpayment they find. There's a huge incentive for them to find problems where there aren't any, and they're hated very much by the Medicare community. That's kind
You
of
can
similar.
imagine. Okay. So I'm on a Maser. Rav Huna, Rav Yehuda, now we're going to have statements of Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda. Chad Amar Mutar. One says it is permitted to purchase from a Maser. Moser. La'avdo biyad. You can, not to purchase from, you can take their things and destroy them. La'avdo biyad means physically destroy something directly. L'chad amar aser la'avdo biyad. And one says, no, it's not permitted to take from them and destroy. We're talking about taking from them, just stomp and destroying what they have. By the way, now that I know that Chaim and Daniel are there, please jump in. Manda Amar Mutala Abdo Biyad, one who says that it is permitted to destroy it physically. Lo Yehe Mamona Kamor Magufo. Don't we say that it is Lo Yehe Mamona Kamor Magufo, that do we say that his money is more strict than his life? We're going to have a whole discussion here, which I'm going to ask someone to help with, because there are a lot of quotations here that I don't have here and I need help with. But the gist of the discussion is going to be taking somebody's money, and is it worse than killing somebody? Or is killing worse than taking money? And there are all these quotations, as you can see in the Gemara. And the Gemara asks, and a lot of commentators ask, do we really need so many quotations from so many parts of Scripture to convince us that it's bad to steal something and it hurts people? So, Hillel, could you start reading now? Let me go a little further, and then I'm going to ask you to read for a few lines. All right, Hillel? Ashala Abdo Dulmahule Zara Maila. Because when you take somebody's money, you don't know what you're taking from his potential children. But Kasiv Yakin Rasha V'Tzadik Yilbash. A Russia can prepare something. Here it means stealing. The tzaddik kilbash, but at the end, the tzaddik can use it for clothing. And what this is all about is it's saying you can take money from a masor, but what if someday his children are going to be tzaddikim? You don't know. So you have to be very careful about who you take money from. And now, Hillel, I think I'm going to ask you to read the next several lines, because there are a lot of these long quotes. Start out with Rav Kizda.
Okay. The Gemara relates that Rav Hizda.
Can you hear it, Hillel?
Okay. The Gemara relates that Rav Hizda had a certain sharecropper who would weigh the field's produce and give Rav Hizda his portion, and weigh the produce and take his own portion. Rav Hizda dismissed him and read the following verse about it. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the righteous.
Okay, let me just stop here. You read that and you say, so what's wrong? He's a sharecropper. He's only supposed to take 30%, and he was careful. He weighed it and he took his 30%. So the Meforshim say, well, that's not what's really going on. Or there's a possibility that he was using two different weight systems, so that he was actually cheating. They're trying to figure out what is wrong. What is wrong with what this sharecropper did? Okay.
And then, the Gemara examines various verses pertaining to robbers. For what is the hope of the godless, though he profits when God takes his soul away? It's a quote from Job. This verse is the subject of a dispute between Rav Huna and Rav Hizda. One says that the phrase God takes away his soul is referring to the soul of the robbed, and one says that it is referring to the soul of the robber. The Gemara elaborates the rationale of the one who says that the verse is referring to the soul of the robbed is as it's written. So are the ways of everyone that is greedy for profit. It takes away the life of the owner, therefore, thereof, which teaches that one who robs another of his property is considered as one who robbed him of his soul. And the rationale of the one who says that it's referring to the soul of the robber is it is written, rob not the weak, because he is weak, neither crush the poor in the gate, for the Lord will plead their cause and despoil of life those that despoil them.
So the question here is, it said it cost the life of somebody, but whose life? The one who's stolen from or the one who does the stealing? And that's what these pasukim are being brought down to discuss.
I think it would be the one that's being like stolen from, because isn't there like a verse that says like that when a man is poor is like considered like he's dead, one of the things that is considered like he's dead?
Yeah, we're gonna get to more of that discussion.
Yeah, but the person spends his life.
Does it still work?
To make a
Yeah,
living.
it's still on.
Someone steals from it, it's like you're depriving them of their effort and their work. That's what they spend their life doing, so.
Yeah. So what are we up to? Where are we up to, Hillel? What's the next word?
The Gemara questions each opinion, and according to their opinion, the latter one isn't.
Are you up to Cain Arcos called Botsea? What profit is there? It's Nefesh Bala Yikak, Manda Amr Nafsho Shel Gazlan Diksiv. No, we're really talking about the life of the one who steals. All Tigzol Dal Ki Dal Hu. Viol Titka Ani Bishar Ki Hashem Yari Vivam Vakava Es Kavehem. Okay, could you read a little more?
I don't know.
Do you see where we're at, Yonatan? Read it loud. Read it loud. Come over here.
Hello, everyone. The Gemara questions each opinion, and according to the other opinion, i.e. the latter one, isn't it also written? So there's a quote here. It takes away the life of the owner thereof. So that's an indication, right, that the neshama that is robbed is taken. The Gemara answers, what is the meaning of the phrase the owner thereof? Is that referring to the current owner, which is the robber, or who has also acquired the stolen item? And according to the other opinion, who said the life of the robbed is taken, isn't it also written the despoil of life, those that despoiled them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So this indicates that the neshama of the robber is taken. The Gemara answers this by saying, what is the reason? Pasuk says, what is the reason that Hashem will despoil the life of those who despoil them? It is because they despoil the neshama of their victims.
All right.
So now we're at Amar Rabbi Yochanan.
Okay.
So if you want to go back and read it.
Yeah, we'll go back. Thank you, Yonatan. Amar Rav Yochanan, Kala Goizel Es Kavero, anybody who steals something from somebody else, of Kavero Shavapruta, even a Shavapruta, which we know is the minimum amount that's recognized in Halakha, Ki'ila Noto Nishmaso, it's as if he's taken his life, Mimeno, Shana Amar, Cain, Arcos, Kal, Botsea. Again, we're with these philosophical statements. All of a person's life, all of what he has, what profit is it? As Nafish Bala, Yikak V'Omer, the Akok Etzirka Lakmak, and when you take someone's money, you take their harvest, you take their food, and you take what they have. Binka Ubenosaka, and the point of this is these last two words, you taking it also from their children, from their sons and from their daughters. V'Omer Machamas, because B'nei Yehuda Asher Shafku Dam, Naki Ba'artsam. Could you read this, that's starting with,
The Omer.
no, Makmas B'nai Yehuda.
It's the last paragraph.
Amar Rabbi Yochanan.
States, Egypt.
Professor, you have it.
Yeah,
Read
And it states, last paragraph on the page.
last paragraph. Oh, so
States.
okay, so the Omer, and it states, Egypt shall be a desolation of Edom, shall be a desolate wilderness for the extortion of Am Yisrael of Yehuda, of the children of Judah, because they have shed innocent blood in their hands. That's pasuk from Yoel. All right, so the verse here considers extortion like the shedding of innocent blood. As it states with regard to a famine, quote, and Hashem said, it is for Shaul and for his bloody house, because he put to death the Gibeonites, the Givonim.
Maiva Omer.
That's
Okay,
from Shmuel.
okay, this is because there was a story about Shaul who destroyed a village of Kohanim, and the Kohanim were supporters of Gibonim. So by destroying the village of these Kohanim, he actually took the life away from the Gibonim. And the point of all this is that imposing this kind of damage on other people, even indirectly, has the same effect as taking something directly.
Oh, yeah.
Eboning with converts that
Gibonim were
Yeah.
the converts that were converted in order to be the water carriers and do the other things in the
Sure.
Beis HaMikdash. And because they were servants in the Beis HaMikdash, they were supported by Kohanim. So when Shaul destroyed this village of Kohanim, he was really destroying the life of these Gibonim.
why did he do that? Why did Shaul do that?
I'm gonna ask Chaim or Daniel to go into that. Chaim, did you hear the question? Did we lose them with dropping the phone? Daniel,
Maybe
Yeah, I'm here.
do
Yeah,
you know the
what-
answer to the question?
Why did Shaul destroy
Why
the city
did
of
he
Kohanim?
destroy this village of Kohanim?
Yeah, because he suspected that they were siding with David HaMelech. Well, before he was king. They found a sword there, and it was because of also Doeg, I think. He kind of incriminated the city.
Okay,
Was it because of what? The last word he said?
could you
Because
repeat
of
that?
Doeg, because of Doeg the Edomite.
So,
these were basically like Canaanite slaves. They just served the Kohanim.
no, they served in the Beis HaMikdash,
But
but the Kohanim were responsible for the Beis HaMikdash.
But they were really Canaanite slaves.
They were what?
Canaanite slaves. Canaanite slaves.
Canaanite slaves? No, they were converted, but there was always a question about their conversion.
So maybe like the Houthis. Like the Houthis, maybe.
I'm not sure.
No, it's in,
I'm
No,
not
they were
sure.
practicing. I mean, it was just, they were down and outs, but they were real Jews, they thought. They were
They
accepting.
tricked Joshua.
But when they were
They-
slaves, like they weren't full Jews. They would have like the mitzvahs of the women. Like they didn't have like time bound mitzvahs.
The Ebonites? These
No,
guys.
no, the converts that were slaves.
Okay, I suggest we move along
Yeah.
because this is really the easier part of what we're gonna do today.
Oh, this is the easy part.
This is the easier part. So I'm now with Kita Amar, and a regular Gemara, it's the penultimate narrow line just before the lines get wide. The Kita Var Nefesh Deha, the Nefesh itself, of the Nefesh Bana Banosa, but when it comes to the lives of the sons and the daughters, lo, Tashima, Basar Bana Banosa, the Kita Amar, Hani Mili, what are we dealing with here? Heka de lo yehiv dame avo heki dehev dame lo. So we're continuing to discuss this issue about killing somebody and taking away the support for children. Lo Tashima, Mekmas B'nai Yehuda Asher Shafku Dam Naki. B'nai Yehuda, we're talking about they shed innocent blood, the arts kem, V'ki Tamar, Hani Mile, Heka the ka'avid biyadayim avogarma, but with respect to doing something indirectly, taking away the parnasa indirectly, no, we're not talking about tashema. Tashema el shol v'al beis hadamim v'al asher hamayim es hagibonim es hameis asher hemis es hagibonim. Okay, can you read this? This was very difficult for me. We find in this manner that Shaul killed the Gibonim. Elamatoik Shahareg, no, but how did he kill the Gibonim? He killed them through the process of killing the Kohanim in the village of Nov, Ira Kohanim, Shahayu Maspikin, they would supply provisions. The Mayim Umazim, they would provide water and food to these Gibonim. Ma'la avalav kasufki ila hargan. Therefore, we say about him, it's as if he killed them directly, even though he killed them indirectly. Okay. Now let's move off of this. Thank God. Of a lokakin mina nashim, but you can buy from women. Tana Rabbanan, and this is going to refer to the fact that in certain. Let me explain something. In traditional Torah law, there was no such thing as community property. Today, we assume when we buy something, it's owned by the husband and the wife. There was not that concept then. Everything was owned either by the husband or the wife. Okay, and there were certain rules about when the wife owned things, but the general assumption is the husband owns everything. It could be different if the wife inherited property, and it could be different if she took money from something that she brought into the marriage or an inheritance, and she could start a business with it. And with her husband's permission, and she would own that business. But in general, the husband owns everything. Okay, and that's the basis for this discussion. Lokakin mina nashin, you can buy something from a one. Klei zemer, what can you buy? Woolen goods in this area of the Huda, Vikli Pishtan Begalil, and you can buy linen goods in the Galil. Avaloya anos v'shemanim v'salasos, but you cannot buy wine and oil and flour. Why? Because these are certain valuable, and it's assumed that if she's selling it, it's not necessarily with her husband's permission. There's a concern that she stole it from her husband and you're buying it. Okay. Below minha avadim, and you also cannot buy from slaves. Below mina tinukos, and you cannot buy from children. Abashal Omer, Abashal says, Mokeret Isha be'arba v'chamisha dinar. You can buy something that's worth up to 4 or 5 dinar. Kedei lasos kipa l'rosha. In other words, that's the amount she would need to buy cloth, to buy something for her hair, to some shmata to put on her head. I don't know if this is for modesty or if this is just the way everyone dressed. But it's saying she could sell something for a small amount of money, enough to buy some pieces of cloth to put on her head. They have a picture here of what?
It's a woman wearing a cap. It's an ancient Greek figure.
Oh, let's hold that up. Oh, there's a picture of a woman wearing a head covering.
And it also adds there that they wouldn't just go out with that head covering, but they would add like a scarf to it or caps.
It's some small amount that she would need to buy a head covering. The Kulon Sha'amu, the Hatmin, and again, anybody who says that you should hide what you're buying, don't tell anybody, usher to buy from them. Gabay tzedakah. We're still talking about women, but what about collectors of tzedakah? Lokakin mehen davar muat. They can take from women a small amount, the assumption being the husband would give his wife permission to give away a little, but not a lot. Avo lo davar maruba, but not a lot. The habadadim lokakin mehem zaysim b'mida. And the badadim is something involving the grape press.
Yeah, olive press.
The olive press.
Could be grapes too, probably.
Badadim lokin mehem zaysim, you can buy from him. Zaysim b'mida. Mida means in a sufficiently measurable amount that it has some value. V'shemen b'mida, and you can buy shemen b'mida of a low zaysim, but you cannot buy olives b'muat, v'shemen b'muat, and olives in small amount and oil in a small amount. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Lokakim Menashim. They said you can't take from women what? Olives, b'moed, b'muad, b'galil. You can take zaysim from women, where in the Galil, apparently because Galil Elyon, apparently because they're plentiful there and they don't have the same value as elsewhere. Shapa'amim, Adambu, sometimes a man is embarrassed for Allah Pesach Beso. He's embarrassed to sell these things like a small amount of olives from his house. The nosin leishto umukeres, but he gives it over to his wife to sell. He's embarrassed, but it's okay for her to be embarrassed, I guess. Okay. Ravina Ikla Lev Mukuza. Ravina, who was, by the way, a collector. He would go around collecting charity funds. It's one of the things he did. Vina Ikla Lebe Mukuza. He went to the village of Mukuza. Oto Nashi Debe Mukuza, and there were women there. Ramu Kameha, and they would throw at him Kameha, which usually is it's a bracelet or a necklace. Kukli, Kabaliv, Vashire Kabil, Minehu, and other jewelry. They would throw these things at him. So we just said you can't take valuable things from a woman, and there we have a story about Ravina going and taking jewelry from women. Amrle, Rabba Tosfa Le Ravina. Hatanya, Gabbai Tzedakah Makali Mehem Davra Moat, Alvolo Davra Maruba. Don't we have something that says you should take from women small amounts and not large amounts? Amrle, Hani Libane Makuza, but here we have the answer. B'nei Makuza, Davra Moat Ninehu. The name Makuza was a wealthy place. This was Beverly Hills. This was Scarsdale. And what was a lot somewhere else was
like
little
Madai,
there.
like Madai,
Like Madai?
the guy who went all the way to Madai, and then the Ganav or the borrower had to go all the way to Madai to return to him. He said the guy can afford to go to Singapore all the way to Madai.
Oh.
It's like money means nothing to him.
Yeah, so here women would
That's right.
throw jewelry at them at Ravina, which normally he couldn't take, but here he could take. Okay,
Doing great.
now the going gets tough. Okay,
I think though, with the woman, she wouldn't be embarrassed because they were used to like dealing like small portions.
well, here it's saying they're so wealthy there.
No, the case before,
Oh, the case
that the
before.
husband would give the wife the small portion.
The husband would be embarrassed to go outside of his house and smell little things. So it was fine for his wife to go out and sell little things. So you don't have to be suspicious that she stole it from her husband. That's the point. Okay. So the first Mishnah was about buying something from a laborer, various types. This last second and last Mishnah is about buying something from a craftsman, somebody who's working on something that doesn't belong to him, but the Baal Habayis gave it to him to do something, to clean it, to weave it, whatever it was. Under what circumstances can you be comfortable that he's not stealing? And we're going to get into a lot of technical details about weaving here. Mokin shehakovas motzi. Okay, mokin are like strands of things that are not in a finished garment or a finished anything. This word comes up a lot in the halakkas of cooking on Shabbos, where you can use mokin to keep an oven hot over Shabbos. So it's just like strands of things. Mokin shehakoves motzi. When someone washes something, strands come out.
Lint.
Exactly. I think it's exactly like lint. Hare elu shalo. These are whose? These belong to the launderer, the one who's doing the laundering. Like the way they used to do laundry is they used to go down to the river and they would pound the cloth with rocks, and they would rub the cloth against itself, and I guess a lot would come out. And this is the reason why women were exempted from doing laundry on Kol HaMoed, because yeah, because it was so much work. This was what a woman spent a lot of her time doing, going down to the river and pounding cloth. It's hard work. Today, you could argue that pressing a button on a machine is not such hard work, but we have the tradition.
Go up the stairs with a laundry basket.
The hasorek, motze hari elu shel balabayas. Okay, this is part of the sorek, I think means combing or scraping in this context. And apparently through the washing process, fibers would be sticking out. And there was a process of combing or scraping the garment. But the issue is that that would produce a lot, not a little, but a lot. Enough that it's assumed that the balabayas wanted to keep. Okay, so that belongs to the balabayas, and if the launderer is trying to sell it to you, you can't buy it because you assume it's stolen goods. Kovis noto gimel kutin, the hain shel shelo. Okay, gimel kutin. Again, this is getting technical, but apparently, and anybody who has an art scroll or another Gemara, please speak up. 3 threads would be sewn into the border of cloth in one direction, which would act a little bit like I guess, a hem. And they would tend to come out, and those would belong in general to the launderer.
Oh,
Okay. Yosher Mikan, Hare Elu Shel Balabayas, but more than these 3, this belongs to the Bailas. Im Hayashak or Agav Halavan, if it was black against white, Noitel Esakol, then he can take all of it. Why? It's assumed that this is being used to protect the garment, but it's not attractive. So if it all comes out in the wash, as they come out in the wash, he can keep it and he can sell it. You don't have to worry that it's been stolen. I call the Hain Shalo. Akayit Shashir Esakut Kadei Letapor Bo, tailor who leaves enough thread in order that you can sew something, bow. Umatila shahaya gimel al gimel, or a piece of cloth that's 3 by 3, and we're talking about finger breadths. So it's 3 by 3. So we're talking about something what 2 inches by 2 inches, maybe.
Looks like a Boy Scout.
What's that?
You look like a Boy Scout.
A Boy Scout? Is that a Boy Scout thing? Okay, I didn't mean that. So gimel hara elu shel balabayas, but anything that's 3 by 3 or more, you assume that that has value and it belongs to the balabayas. Ma shacharesh motzi me atzad. What about a carpenter? A charesh here is a carpenter. He gets something with the school called adzad, which I wonder if that's really the same word that we use for the word the carpentry tool adze, A-D-Z-E, because it's very close. And
Like an edge.
it's not a planer. It's not
it's
a
a hand
planer.
cutting tool used for
Yeah,
shaping
it's a
wood.
cutting tool. Yeah, that's right. It has a handle and a little piece of metal that comes off like this, and you can chip away at it. And I've seen somebody do it, and somebody who's skillful can make something perfectly smooth and nice. But somebody cuts away with this azad. I think it's an adze. Hare elu shelo. Why? Because these are tiny little pieces. You assume that's not of value to the balabayas. Uba kashil, but with a saw, shel balabayas. This belongs to the balabayas. The saw that he's talking to here is a saw that we think of, a long piece of metal with saw teeth on it. Okay, so you use that to cut larger pieces of wood, not tiny pieces. So you assume it has value to the balabayas and he wants to
So
keep it.
this is saying like the sawdust is so insignificant, we can assume it's not for the balabayas.
You must have read ahead.
Oh, did I? Oh,
Yeah.
No, I'm just.
Yeah, good for you. So Yonatan and the Gemara both are concerned about sawdust. Vim haya oisa eitzel balabayas, but if he is by the house, if he's in the place of the balabayas, not in his workshop, but he went to the house of the balabayas, af nisarim, which I think means sawdust. So balabayas, there everything, no matter how small, belongs to the balabayas. You can't buy it. Gemara, Tanarabanan, Lokiki Mokin Mina Kovish, you can buy these strands from the launderer, Mipnei Shehain Shalo, because they belong to the launderer. Kovish Noitel Shnei Kutin, Pe'al Yonin, Shehain Shalo. But if the again, this is some specific concept about how a tailor makes the garment. The Kovish can keep it. Velo yito, we just turned the page, we're on the top of 119b. Velo yito bo yoiter mishalosha choivin velo yisrok habeged. But now we're going to have a limit on what the launderer can take. Yoter mishalosha, more than 3 threads. Chovin velo yisarog begedeg stuff. Could you read what this translation?
And a carder should, I don't know what a carder is, but it says a carder should not place in a piece of cloth more than 3 stitches.
Okay, a carder. If there's anybody here who has experience weaving, we could use your input here.
Only in traffic. Just kidding, just kidding.
We're done with the launderer. Now we're talking about weaving, and a carder is, I think, a person who sets up the loom. I think. Okay.
And the loom is that spool thing.
Somebody told me that Art Scroll has good picture of how a loom is set up, and
It's got the roof.
okay,
Oh, wow.
I can't see
That looks
from
good.
here.
Is that a loom?
That's a loom, but it's fairly complicated.
Yeah.
It's complicated, and I looked up some of these terms in English, and I had no idea what they meant.
Warp and what?
Well, in Hebrew, it's called shesi ve'erev, which we
Yeah.
use in other cases to mean, diagonal,
That's the
going
warp and the.
this way and this
put-
way. It's the warp and the weft.
Yes,
Okay, do you know which is which?
the warp is the chassis.
Is that up and down or side to side?
Yes, over and under the first, from left to right, and the Erev is from left to right,
Okay,
and then from right to left. In this picture, the warp is the red and the black
Oh.
is the weft.
okay.
The
Daniel,
weft goes right to
Daniel,
left.
do you have this picture? Okay. Oh, that's a good picture.
That's of the whole loom.
Anyway,
Nice picture.
we don't know much about this because we just go to the store and we buy clothes. But back in the day, what women spent their time doing was weaving and laundry and cooking. That was their life. So this is discussing the limit of what can be taken from a weaver, whoever it is that's selling. Shtaim ella la'arev umishahu umashevya la'arko avalo la'rochava. And if people have something with English, please read it. It's talking about whether you can take from the width or the length of something that's being woven,
Not along its width.
not along its width. I honestly am not sure we're going to understand this, but we'll do the best we can. V'imbala hashavya tefak rashai. And if you cut it off, you can cut off up to a tefak. Mar sheni kutin v'hanein tanen shalosh lo kashya alima v'haba katani. We're talking about different kinds of threads. You can't take from a wide thread, but you can take from a thin thread, as I understood this.
Ready to come up with some good facilities on this.
Yeah.
Rennie?
Not in that mental level.
This feed up.
Okay,
I need more coffee.
okay. Below Yisrok is comb, and I think we're now getting more into the weaving. Let's talk a little bit about the process of weaving, so we can at least understand a little bit of this. So the process is wool is taken from the sheep by whatever means, and the first thing that's done is it's washed in the river. Okay, and why is it washed? Because sheep don't live in sanitary places. They're out in the desert and they get all kinds of garbage on their wool, and it collects, it hardens, it all kinds of problems. So you wash it in the river. That doesn't get everything out, it helps. Then they would take sticks or stones and they would pound these threads to get more of this garbage out. And I think then they would wash it again. And now they're ready for spinning, which is, I'm not really sure what it does, but it somehow separates out each individual thread from the larger amount. And then I think it's ready for dyeing. So that's in general the process, okay? And at what point can somebody who's involved with, you buy something from somebody who's involved in this, at what point can you assume it belongs to him? And at what point do you say it probably belongs to the Balabayas? Okay. Below Yisruk HaBeged, the Shtav, Ella La'arva, you don't use this wood. The stroke is a metal comb that is used on the wool to separate this garbage from the wool and to make it ready for dyeing and use. You can stroke in one direction but not another. Hatanya Ipka, that is taught the opposite. Lo kasha. There's not a problem. We're talking about different situations here. Ha beglima v'ha ha b'saravla. One is with galima, I think means wide threads. Is that what it says there?
This was teasing the warp with an everyday garment that can tear easily.
Beglima?
Yeah.
What is saravla?
A distinguished cloak
A distinguished cloak.
needs the richer appearance of the warp teasling. We just go to the store, we buy a garment and that's it.
That's exactly right. We don't know these things. You don't take more than 3 of these threads, right?
Yeah.
Boy, Rabbi Yirmiyahu comes and he questions this. Tuye, a needle, v'asayachad, odilma amtuya v'asuya tre teku. What kind of, I think he's talking about the needle here, right? Tuye?
Stitches.
Oh, stitches, tuye.
What's going through and back is counted as one stitch, or perhaps it says passing needle and thread through and bringing it back, it counted as 2.
I asked my wife what one of these words meant, and she said, "Oh, that's the bobbin."
Yes, here is translated as bobbin.
And I said, "Well, what's a bobbin?" So
Bobbin is what holds the thread.
Yeah.
The underneath.
yes, but the point is, as a bobbin, they used to use pieces of wool as the bobbin itself. So then the question is, can the weaver sell the bobbin, or does that belong to the person who provided him with the wool?
Just remember, keeps bobbing a little.
Awesome.
Okay.
And working with the 2 or 3 schools. That's part of the Shabbos.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yonatan,
Okay.
Yonatan, can you read from Mishavya Arco, and you can do this according to its length, but not according to its width?
Help Joseph.
Here, Mishavya.
Yes. thank you. It was further stated in the Baraisa, and he may even out the cloth by cutting it along its length, but not along its width. So the Gemara asked, isn't it taught in another Baraisa that the opposite is true? The Gemara answers that this is not difficult. The statement of this Baraisa is with regard to a garment where an uneven length would be conspicuous. The statement of that Baraisa, which rules that one should even it out along its width, is stated with regard to a belt. As a belt is more noticeable than its length while it is being worn. So we're on Tana Rabbanan.
Okay, you can keep going, please.
The Gemara cites a Baraisa that discusses which items may be purchased from a carter. Chazal says, they taught in a Baraisa, one may not purchase strands of thread from a carter because it is assumed that they are not his. And in a place where the residents were accustomed to allow carters to retain strands, the strands may be presumed to be his, and one may purchase them. And in every place, one may purchase from a cushion full of stuffing made from strands, or a mattress full of stuffing made from strands. So what is the reason? My timer. Reason is that it is permitted. What is the reason it's permitted? The reason is that even if the carter had stolen the strands, once he uses them to make a cushion or mattress, he has acquired them through a change.
A change. And
yes.
remember, we've talked about this a few times.
Yeah.
Even if you steal something, if you make a change to it, you acquire it. Okay. And there's biblical changes and there are rabbinic changes, and the rabbinic changes are a lesser change than the biblical changes. But here, what has he done? He's taken it and he's put it into a cushion. He's made a pillow. He's
Mhm.
taken something, he's made a pillow, let's say, or maybe a mattress.
Right.
So that's enough of a change that he's considered to own it. You can buy it from him.
Yep.
Tana Rabbanan, we're up to Tana Rabbanan, please.
Tana Rabbanan, Ein Lokli. Oh, so the sages taught in Baraisa, one may purchase from a weaver neither woolen wads, which is irin. That's there's a note here about irin. That's wads, which are used to hold the bobbin in place on a shuttle, nor pedals, nirin, nor threads of the bobbin. That's punkalim, nor remnants of coils of thread that were left on the spool. So it says here there's a concern that these items were taken from the customer without his consent. So, avalokrim mahen beged minumar, but one may purchase a spotted garment from them, even though the design indicates that it was made from strands of different colors, which the weaver may have stolen from other garments that he was weaving. But it is mutar to warp threads and weft threads from them, as well as wool that was spun into thread or woven. Okay, so Amri, say now, hashta tavoy shikli. Say now that the Brisa taught that one may purchase spun wool, despite the fact that it has undergone only a minor physical change. Is it necessary to teach that one may purchase woven wool, which has undergone a greater change of form? The Gemara answers, what does the Brisa mean when it mentions woven wool? It means chains. It was twisted into chains, which is also a minor physical change. So we're on Tana Rabbanan. The sages taught in Baraisa.
Okay, I can take this over
Okay.
because we're going to finish up shortly, and
Okay.
Rabbi Smith can then finish up. Tana Rabbanan, ein lokin minat tzava. You do not take something from a dyer. Lo osos, no small pieces. Assuming, I think this is probably referring to small pieces that he has dyed to test, perhaps. Below dugmaot, and no, not from samples. I think this is the first one referred to pieces that he had dyed to show to the balabais and say, is it okay? Below dugmaot, and this refers to something that the balabais brings in and says, this is the color that I want you to make it. Below telushin shel tzemer, and not to little tufts or pieces of wool. Avalokakin mehem bagad savua, but you can take from him, this dyer, something that has already been colored, tavuye, begading hashta tuvye shakel begading. Why? Because he's enough of a change that even if he stole it, it's now considered his, and you can buy it from him. My boy, my begadim, namati tan rabbanan, hanoisen oros la'avdan. You give a skin of the animal to a tanner.
Hide, yeah.
A hide. Hakatsuyin, vitalushin, and apparently there are ways that it's stretched out. I don't remember all the process of tanning, but I know you stretch out, you scrape the hair off,
Mhm.
and then it goes through all a process of a lot of chemicals are applied to it. You know, there's discussion in the Gemara about a woman who can refuse to live with a man because he's a tanner,
Yeah,
because they come home with such terrible smells. And in the United States, these places that used to have tanneries are considered super fun. Those super funds go to that. They were so toxic. My son used to live near the most toxic site in the United States because it had a tannery on it for so long.
Las
In
Vegas.
Philadelphia.
Las Vegas.
It's the most toxic place you can.
Katsua v'talushin, are elu shel balabayas, but pieces that come out. So when he scrapes it off, I believe the hair belongs to the balabayas, and when they're stretching it out, they put hooks on the skin to stretch it out so they can be cut evenly. And where the hooks go in and you pull it, you can cut that off, and that belongs to the tanner. Or the mishate, the mayim, and but what you put in the water, when you put it in the water to soak it, are elu shalo. These belong to the tanner. Im hayashoker.
Want to stop here?
I'd be thrilled to stop here. To stop
We
here.
should.
Yeah, let's
No,
stop
go a
here.
little
No?
further.
Okay.
Because I don't know, Yosef, where are you starting from? You're finishing the Gemara.
Oh,
We
you'll
can
say
start
you're gonna
from
do it tonight?
Masha,
Right, so what, do you know?
Masha Charish.
You know,
One
what?
line.
One line, go as far as you can go.
We could
It's still,
stop. We could
it's
stop
still
right here.
7-Eleven. We don't down to 8 o'clock.
Yeah, there's 7-Eleven right off
Good,
163rd.
we finally developed some sense of humor, but we're supposed to go to 7:30. So why don't we go as far as we can without finishing?
We could stop right here.
That, no,
How
no es
far is that?
problema.
So we're right
Todo
here.
bien.
I borrowed your book.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine.
Thank you.
Right here.
Just remember, the red
Ah, yeah,
goes
sure.
blah, 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 blah.
Okay, we're back to the launderer here, and we're talking about black threads on a white garment. Im hayashakar, if it was dark, okay. Amar Rav Yehuda, Katsara Shemei, a launderer who's also called a Katsara. Katsara means to cut something, and he's called a Katsara because he has the right in certain instances to cut from the
Sure.
garment he's given. Why? Because he has to stretch it out in order to clean it, and he's allowed to cut off the piece that he stretched out. The picture that I have in mind, because I saw a picture somewhere, is if this is the garment, he sews thread in here and he stretches out and attaches it to something over here, and he does that in several places. And then when he's done, he can cut off. Sounds a little funny, but that's what they were allowed to do. Katsara Shmei, he's called a Katsara, but Katsara Shekel Le. Why? Because he takes the short pieces of wool that he cuts off for himself. Amar Rav Yehuda, Hakol Olin Leminyan Tekelas. All are counted towards the minimum number of strings. Okay. This Gemara, I borrowed Yonatan's Gemara, which I guess this is
It's the corn.
the Koran. It's talks about tekelas here meaning sky blue wool, but other Meforshim that I listened to and read said it doesn't mean tekelas here, it just means threads in general.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
They don't use another word.
Yeah. Hakol Olin Leminyan, all are counted towards this minyan, everything that he cuts off. And then Yehuda says, Yitzhak B'ni Bari Kaped Aleha. My son is very careful about that. And the Fortune say, why is that brought in? It's not clear at all. Akayat Shishiar. Now, a tailor that leaves certain threads over, Vakama Latapor, how many does he need? How much is he allowed to keep and how much goes to the balas? Amaravasi, Molimachet, Huslamachat. And he gives the answer in terms of length of a needle. Okay. In other words, when you sew something, you need enough thread that's at least the length of a needle so that you can double back and do this. This is the one thing I know about because I sew up the turkey in my house. And I'm very aware that I need a lot of thread to be able to double back and sew up. So I'm always giving myself more thread. That's what my wife says. Amaravasi, Malo Malechut, the length of the thread, Chutz Lamachet, aside from the needle itself. So in other words, you need enough thread that's at least as long as the needle for you to be able to double back and sew. Less than this should belong to the worker.
Plus a little bit.
Plus a little bit.
Because otherwise you can't.
Otherwise, you
you're not pull-
need more than the needle itself so you can turn the corner and do it. That's right. Iboilahu, and they asked him, Male machat, v'kutz lemachat, kamale machat. did you mean beyond the needle, there must be an additional amount of thread equivalent? Or perhaps he meant it must be the size of the needle. Odilma male makat v'kutzla makat mishahu. Or perhaps he meant, as Rennie said, a little more is needed. Tashma, come in here, and now we're going to find the answer to this explosive question. Tanya, kaya chisher esakut pakot mi kadei litaporbo, a teller who left the thread attached to the cloth that is less than the length in order to sew with it, or if there was a patch of cloth less than 3, pakot mi shlosha al shlosha, Bisman Shabalabias Makpid Alehen, in a place or a time where the Balabias cares about it. Hare Elushal Balabias. These belong to the Balabalas. Ain Balabias Makpid Alehen, but if the Balabias is not care about it, Hare Elushal. No, this is different from everything else we've learned today, where it says it all depends on whether the Balabias cares. Other places it says there's a minhag, and that's the halakha. But here it's really saying if the Balabias cares about it. Now, this is very different.
He wants to change.
Hmm?
He wants to change. He wants that.
He wants it. He cares. Yeah.
There was one. Some people say keep the change.
Right.
This guy says, "I want the change back."
Right. Exactly. That's a good description. Granted, if you say that Ravasi meant to say that the thread must be the size of the needle and beyond the needle, there must be an additional amount of thread equivalent to the size of the needle. Pakos mikan kazi lesikta, but less than that is still fit for use of stitching of a loop. Reading here, I have no idea what this refers to. But if it's the size of the nivakus lamakat mishahu, but if it's larger than the size of the pakot mikan lamai chazai, but if it's less than the size of the needle, then it has a different treatment. Ella shemamina, we're almost done. Malay makat v'kutz lamata makat. The size of the needle v'kutz lamakat beyond the needle. Kamale makat shemamina must be equivalent to the size of the needle, so that the thread must be a total, as Rennie said, of at least 2 needle lengths. Shemamina, and this is the final answer.
So
I'm very happy.
Where did you stop?
We started at
How many lines from the bottom? So Yosef knows.
Wow.
What? No, how many lines from the bottom?
Yes, yours.
From which one?
Right here.
Yeah. Oh, Shmamina, I got it. Okay.
Got it.
Mashech Raj. Okay, you got that, Yosef? That's what you're gonna do tonight.
Wow.
2 lines above the thick lines. No, you can do it this way. I sent you the text. Did you see the text?
Yeah.
Look in your WhatsApp. Oh, I thought it was going on here.
Are the needles in those days little
Wait,
needles or
wait,
big needles?
1 second, yes. Did you shut this off?
Oh, how do we shut this off? Thank you.
Thank you, Naftali.
Oh,
I
with the
appreciate
red
it.
letter off.
Shavatov.
But,
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for listening. I apologize, I couldn't do better. I just found this excruciating.
very, very difficult. No, but you did a great job. Thank you so much.
Great job. Great job.
I looked it up.
They saved the best for last.
Bye.
Good day.
Bye.